Here, take this. Henry, the nerd, impatiently took the love letter I handed to him and tossed it right into the garbage can nearby. Stop delivering love letters for others. Finals are already stressful. This one's from me. Henry's expression shifted as he panicked and fished the envelope out carefully from the trash. Why didn't you say so earlier? The first monthly exam results for senior year were out, and once again, I was second in my grade. A crowd formed around the posted rankings, buzzing with chatter. Daisy's second again, that's tough. Listening to their teasing, I angrily calculated the points between me and first place. Who's in first? Have you just started school here? Who else but Henry could it be? He's practically welded to that top spot. 28 points. I'm 28 points short of Henry's 681. I sighed quietly, squeezed through the crowd to grab a cup of hot water at the end of the hallway, and headed back to class. As I passed by class 1, I instinctively glanced inside. Henry sat quietly by the window, wearing those silver glasses perched on his high nose, giving him a scholarly vibe. Yet the way he twirled his pen had this oddly mischievous aura. Didn't even come out to check the results. How confident can you be? He frowned slightly, working on exercises at his desk, but looked up and glanced at the door when he noticed my gaze. Feeling flustered, I gripped my cup tightly and quickly walked back to my classroom. Darn it. It's bad enough he's smart, but he's also so good-looking. Which window did God close for him? Back at my desk, I stared blankly at my answer sheet as my best friend and desk mate, Bella, commented cheekily on my test papers. How many second places are you on now? Ready to summon a dragon? Why are you teasing me too? Whose side are you on? I wasn't, but why are you so fixated on first place? You too could easily get into Cambridge with these scores. Didn't I tell you before? My dad promised to come back to be with me if I get first place again. Oh, come on, he was probably joking. Why take it so seriously? I snatched the answer sheet back from her hand. It's not a joke. I transferred to this school in junior year due to family reasons. At my old school, I was always comfortably at the top of every exam. Here, I'm constantly overshadowed by Henry and got the nickname Eternal Second. Suddenly, Bella leaned over with a mysterious expression. I know how you can surpass Henry. Huh? You should seduce him. Once he's head over heels for you, break up with him. His grades will plummet, and you'll easily grab that top spot. I couldn't help rolling my eyes. That's so wrong. I can't do that. Besides, Henry is as unyielding as a 1,000-year-old iron tree. He seems intent on studying until we all drop. And Jane, I don't want her glaring daggers at me either. You're just as pretty as Jane, if not more. How she became the school goddess is beyond me. You don't even have to dump him. If it works out, you'd be the school's first power couple heading to a top university. And getting to know him more couldn't hurt. You might pick up some study tips. Hesitant, I put away my answer sheet, deep in thought. I am curious about how he studies so well. Come on, don't you want first place? Sometimes you just gotta go for it. Plus, if you beat him, you'll break our school's infamous curse. What curse? The small fish eats the shrimp, everything has its nemesis. I'm pretty experienced with exams, but when it comes to boys, I'm clueless. My limited encounters with crushes consist of rejecting a declaration of love in junior high because I liked people who study well. At 6:20 a.m., I awkwardly paced in front of class 1 with breakfast in hand. I figured guys liked thoughtfulness. No tricks, just sincerity. But as it turned out, Henry's desk was already packed with a variety of breakfasts, dumplings, fried dough sticks, soy milk, you name it. I sighed, holding up my humble rice ball, and decided to treat myself instead. Just as I turned away, I bumped right into Henry, who was coming with his backpack. His eyes flickered from my face to the breakfast in my hand, raising an eyebrow in surprise. For me? I quickly unwrapped it and stuffed the rice ball into my mouth. In your dreams. He chuckled, glancing at my bulging cheeks as he stepped into the classroom. Easy there, don't choke. 653. Why does he even care? Wait, 653? Is that supposed to be me? Unbelievable. Eternal second, 653, they act like I don't even deserve a normal name. During language arts, the teacher returned model essays from the monthly test. Mine was right next to Henry's. I had to admit, his essay showed skill. It logically progressed, was well argued, and even his handwriting was neat. Henry's essay was detailed and logical, Daisy's writing was eloquent and illustrative. Both are exemplary for us. I shot a glance at Bella's knowing smirk and carefully put away the model essays. In our final year, the school created a top university prep group, charmingly called the Special Excellence Class, picking top students from each class to study and discuss together. Bringing tonight's homework, I randomly chose a spot. Henry glanced at me and sat diagonally in front. Unexpectedly, Jane walked in, prompting murmurs among the classmates. Jane? What's she doing here? She can't be part of this special class, right? No way, just because her dad funded a few buildings? What's the point? Her grades are barely above average. She's just here for Henry. Jane swept her gaze across the whispering students with disdain, then flashed a charming smile at Henry as she tossed her hair. Henry, can I sit next to you? Whatever. Henry flipped a page of his workbook, responding casually without looking up. Jane happily plopped down next to Henry, handing him a piece of candy. Students, you are the brightest from our junior high, the flowers of our motherland, and the future pillars of our society. The special honors class provides you with better resources. Make sure to cherish and use them well, motivate each other to progress. Peers with similar rankings can create study groups to discuss key points together. I gathered my courage and approached Henry with the last question from the math exam. Henry, our teacher mentioned there's another way to solve this derivative problem without substitution. Do you know how? His long fingers took the paper, scribbling a few notes. You're struggling a bit, aren't you, 653? I frowned at Henry's notes on my sheet. He's right though, the gap between us is mainly in math. I have a name. He smirked and suddenly asked out of the blue. What university are you aiming for? I tilted my head, pondering for a moment. Cambridge University, I guess. He raised an eyebrow. No offense, but your scores might not be there yet for Cambridge. Ugh, this guy. A competitive fire sparked in me. I slammed the paper on the desk, determinedly standing up under his surprised gaze. Let's make a bet. On what? Midterms. You? He snickered. Jane, sitting nearby, laughed at Henry's bluntness. I pursed my lips, annoyed. Henry, can you help me with this problem? She pleaded softly, eyes full of admiration and hope. Henry pushed up his glasses, looking Jane in the eye. You should discuss with peers on your level. Any misunderstandings on that? Jane hesitated, blushing before withdrawing her hand. There should be a prize if I win. I squared my shoulders, boldly declaring. If I don't score higher than you, I'll be your errand girl for a month. But don't go overboard. And if I do score higher? I frowned, trying to think of something to say. You have to grant me one wish. I haven't thought of it yet, but no backing out. He stopped twirling his pen, smiling. Sure, but I have conditions too. No turning one wish into many, nothing involving my family, and nothing about dating you. Deal. You gotta hand it to our students' gossiping skills. Within a day, our school was buzzing with talk about my bet with Henry, with wild versions of it circulating everywhere. Hey, did you hear? Daisy, who's always been second, bet Henry on the next test to see who gets first. Apparently, if Daisy wins, Henry has to date her. Didn't think she'd be so bold. The version I heard is Henry promised to grant any wish she wants, except dating. Can you stop spreading nonsense? It's Jane and Daisy betting on who can score higher to win Henry. Yours is the most ridiculous by far. Our classmates' creativity turned this little bet into a swirling mess of drama. Jane somehow got dragged into it too, with spins of a love triangle story. Honestly, rumors can end with wise folks, but I have no time for this. We're just healthy, friendly competitors in academics. How positive and encouraging. The school forum even started a poll, Daisy versus Henry, who will be the midterm champion? Henry leads with just over 300 votes, with the voter-gender ratio at 2-8. Those shallow girls only care about looks. My best friend hit me with a workbook in frustration. I told you to stand your ground, not embarrass yourself. Calm down. Think about it, losing isn't a big deal. I get to learn by helping him, and winning would be awesome. Oh right, about that poll. Who did you vote for? We little folks are smart, diligent, goal-oriented, a teacher's helper, and a model student. Who did you vote? Henry. Teachers puzzled over why the top 2 students kept visiting the office so frequently. Never been so motivated. Our homeroom teacher sipped tea with satisfaction. As expected, senior year has them working harder. Our class might get into good schools after all. I knocked on the office door, wobbly carrying a stack of homework to the math teacher's desk. Henry followed, holding some test paper. As I counted assignments, my attention drifted toward him. Teacher, I've finished the test paper you gave me. The math teacher adjusted his glasses, marking Henry's paper. I tiptoed to sneak a peek, but Henry shot me a glance and pushed me back with his hand. Stingy, won't share, fine. Hey, Daisy, come over and listen too. I beamed at Henry, scooting him aside to make room for myself. He grudgingly made space, whispering to me, poser. I whispered back sharply, petty. Henry, freeloader. Me, you just listen then. Henry, that's not even an idiom. What are you two whispering about? Are you listening or not? I straightened up, standing tall and focused with Henry, listening to the teacher's explanation. Teacher, do you have more interesting problems for me? Me too, please. Oh, getting competitive, huh? The math teacher smiled, handing each of us a practice sheet, reminding us it's the latest forecast paper to carefully study. Once everyone left, he proudly surveyed his fellow teachers. See, math is what really gets students interested. The head of teaching chuckled, straightening his files. Those two make a good pair, don't they? You're the head of teaching, and this is how you stir things up instead of discouraging early romance? The much-anticipated midterm results came out. Everyone didn't look for their own names first but searched for the top 2 spots. With people crowding, I couldn't get through and had to pull my friend back who had already gone to check it out. I have a piece of good news and a bad one. Which first? 3 bad news, you didn't beat Henry in the exam. Good news, you've improved, and the gap has narrowed. I sighed as I pushed through to check the rankings. A score of 666, pretty auspicious, right? But still, a bit behind Henry's 683. A tinge of disappointment in my heart, though not unexpected. Suddenly, there was a commotion behind me. I froze for a moment and turned my head. Sure enough, Henry was leaning against a pillar not far away, hands in pockets, meeting my gaze with confidence and a hint of challenge. Well, seeing is believing, Henry actually came to see the rankings himself? Probably because of that bet with Daisy. Wow, what an honor to witness this showdown. Feeling uneasy with so many eyes on me, I tried to sneak away to a corner. Before I could blend into the background, someone grabbed my collar and pulled me back. It was Henry, yanking me like a little chick. He tossed me a heavy backpack, and I staggered a bit but managed to keep my balance. Gotta pay up when you lose a bet, huh? Seemed like he was in a good mood, humming a tune as he walked ahead. I followed along, grumbling to myself, carrying his bag to match his pace. Henry suddenly stopped, and I bumped into his back. Rubbing my forehead, I felt a bit annoyed. I kept my complaints to myself, avoiding even mental grumbling. Turns out I've earned myself a new nickname, Henry's Little Shadow. Here's my daily routine: bring lunch for Henry, solve a problem, fetch water for Henry, complete a set of papers, pass messages for Henry, attend a class. After the 4th period, Henry lounged like a lord outside my classroom, drawing everyone's attention. I looked at the clock, sighed, and steeled myself for what was next. I want chocolate milk. Can you buy me a pack from the store later? Got it, Your Highness. I responded, rolling my eyes. I came back from the store, sneaking around Class 1's classroom with a milk pack in my hand. Henry was napping on a pile of papers and workbooks, only his fluffy hair visible. I carefully set the milk next to his pencil case, staring at his head in a daze. Why is his hair so thick when he's so good at math? That's not fair. I smirked to myself as I prepared to leave, but Henry suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. What are you doing? I asked, suddenly feeling caught red-handed. My voice came out a bit nervously. Your hair's thinning, I blurted out. Henry glared at me but checked his hair anyway, muttering something about too much homework causing stress. I barely held back a laugh, but my attention went to the papers on his desk. I've been looking for this set of papers everywhere, I said, glancing over his shoulder. Henry smugly pushed the papers toward me and nudged his desk mate to leave room for me. So, you think this will be on the exam? I asked, pointing at a problem. Probably, he replied. Carbon cycles have been a major topic lately. They might tie it to sustainable development or something. Seriously, who said humanities are easy? This is so tough, I grumbled. We chatted, voices low, as sunlight trickled through the leaves, casting shadows on the desk. Hey, Daisy, Henry suddenly said, catching my attention. Remember to come to cheer for me at tomorrow's basketball game. By the time I arrived, the basketball game was in full swing. I clutched a bottle of cold sports drink, sitting in the stands watching intently. Jane, leading the cheer squad, was really getting the crowd going with her boundless energy. Her enthusiasm was infectious, making me almost want to join in, but my lack of coordination held me back. When Jane saw me, her smile stiffened, and her friends snidely remarked, "Look, it's Henry's shadow. Here to tail him again." I shrugged it off. I wasn't exactly a sidekick, although, on paper, he was technically my boss. And Jane was understandably not thrilled about being involved. Henry was wearing a white jersey, muscles faintly showing beneath it, and his hair seemed golden under the sun. He took the ball from a teammate, dodged a few opponents, and gracefully scored. For a moment, he seemed to shine, full of life and youthful exuberance. The shouts around me were overwhelming. I clapped along with everyone and watched as Henry wiped the sweat off his forehead. He glanced around the crowd like he was searching for something. "Jane, he's looking at you." "So sweet." Someone squealed. Jane nudged her friend and cheered louder. Our class president wasn't about to be outdone, rallying everyone to pump up our players. I chimed in with my own cheer, "Go, number 6. Henry frowned, paused, then resumed playing. During halftime, he took a towel and casually wiped his sweat, then walked off the court. Jane approached him with a smile, holding out chocolate milk. "Heard you wanted this, Henry." "No, thanks. Post-game isn't the best time for something so sweet," Henry replied, bypassing her and heading straight to me. "Hey, I'm number 9, he said. "I know 6 is in my class. Gotta cheer for my own, right?" Henry took the drink from me, gulping it as he headed back, reminding me again, 9, remember. So here I am, under all this pressure, awkwardly cheering for Henry while my classmates stare at me. My voice gets smaller and less confident with each cheer. But he's loving it, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Guys, stop staring at me. I really had no choice. 13th letter. This is the 13th love letter I've received. Of course, they're not addressed to me. They're for Henry, and I'm just the messenger. Clutching a pretty, well-wrapped envelope, I watch a girl run away in embarrassment and sigh. Should I tell them Henry isn't a fan of these letters? I handle most of them for him. With a stack of uniquely designed love notes, I corner Henry in the hallway and shove them into his hands. You should at least take a look. They're heartfelt, you know. He stares at the pile in my hands, then glances at me. Do you want me to read them? Huh. It's your choice. Don't you get mad? Should I be mad? Henry tightens the cap on his water bottle, brushes past me. I'm not interested in them. What's the point of keeping these? Better to decline. He seems upset. Henry's got me in a Cold War well, more like a one-sided silent treatment. The kicker is I don't even know why. Lately, his moods are totally unpredictable, like a moody cat. I bump into him in the hall, ask if he needs help getting water, and he just turns his head, ignoring me. Our bet is about a month old now. Is he trying to end things with me? There's so much I can still learn from him. Who doesn't want that kind of free tutoring? I slump onto my desk in frustration, and Bella lightly pokes my shoulder. Did you two fight? I shake my head, spinning my pen in distraction. Didn't Henry like doing that too? Why don't you just ask him? Clear the air. Oh right, I can talk. So, I buy some milk candy and go to class 1 intending to ask him what's up. Henry's buried in his homework. I start a conversation next to him, awkwardly. Wow, this problem is hard. I spent 10 minutes and got nowhere. No response. I pushed the milk candy to him, for you. Touched. Still no response. I yank his homework. He finally looks up. What's wrong with you? Henry retrieves his notebook from me, doodling absent-mindedly on scrap paper. Daisy, are you curious about me? I nod intensely like a pecking chick. What are you curious about? How on earth are you so good at studying? Come on, spill your secrets. You seriously want to be number one? Of course. He closes his notebook with a sigh, pulling out some of his notes. Caught off guard, I hold the notes he tossed to me, frozen. Suddenly Jane calls Henry out. Henry, I need to talk to you. As he leaves with her, rumors start to fly about how close Henry and Jane have been. People say Jane confessed to Henry and he accepted. Hearing the whispers from the back row about Henry and Jane grates on my nerves. I try to focus on my English vocab, covering my ears to block them out. But it's no use, I can't concentrate. Taking a break, I head to the restroom and spot Jane near Henry, asking questions. I take a deep breath and walk past them, pretending I didn't see. Henry seems to look my way. Daisy. He calls my name, but I ignore him and speed up my pace, vanishing around the corner. I'm off. Henry's off too. Our classes share gym time, and after jogging 2 laps, I go to a corner of the field. The brutal sun at 2 p.m. almost tears me up. I struggle to focus on my paper, searching desperately for shade. Finally, I give up on writing. Suddenly, a shadow cools my head. I stare at it for a while. It's Henry, back turned, flipping through a small vocab book. Learn your vocab, then get back to your paper. I huff and turn away silently. Serves him right for ignoring me the other day. I casually mentioned wanting grape juice recently, and next day there it is on my desk. No need to guess who left it. With a note saying, buy one, get one free just for you. Henry's the king of tough love. Bella stares at the grape juice, wide-eyed, clinging to my arm. Daisy, write a book. I'll be your student. I seriously pretend to leaf through a politics book, turning her head back. Say that again and I'll twist your head off to use as a stool. I head to the office to pick up tonight's homework. At the door, I spot Henry and pretend not to see him, pushing through first. I count out the assignments and divide them as the teacher asked. Henry sidles up to me, helping out. I keep a firm silent act, focused on my task. Our math teacher watches, sipping his water in a tactical retreat. I finish organizing the papers, slap Henry's hand away, and leave. Henry looks awkward, avoiding our math teacher's curious gaze. What's up? Made her mad? Henry shakes his head, thinks, then nods. Daisy, help me get these review sheets back to the class, will you? I have to turn back. Henry automatically takes half, and we awkwardly head back. Caught off guard as my right shoelace comes loose, before I can bend down, Henry stacks his papers onto mine and kneels to tie my laces into a neat bow. His tying hand overlaps in memory with his pen-spinning hand. His fingers brush against my ankle. Suddenly, my ears flush pink. I grab my papers and scurry away. Studying at the special class that night, Henry sits next to me with his backpack. I haven't spoken to him in 3 days. The test results came back, and I'm stuck on a calculus problem, absent-mindedly chewing my pen cap. Just a few short questions are almost frying my brain cells. I scribbled a few notes on my scratch paper, sneaking a glance at Henry who was completely absorbed in his work. After struggling for a bit, I turned to ask our class president Henry, who was also super good at math. Henry's a nice guy. A little cute too. He patiently explained the problem-solving process and methods to me. I nodded, still a little confused, as I listened closely to him. Suddenly, someone snatched my paper away. Annoyed, I turned around to see Henry calmly jotting down a few formulas on it, and then he simply said, "Ask me." Reluctantly, I mumbled quietly, "Henry is great at math, too. He's the best in his grade, and I'm the best in mine." Stumped and unable to think of a comeback, I sat up straight, listening carefully as he explained the problem. Henry's got a unique way of explaining things. Every time, I have an aha moment that sticks with me. I went over the steps from start to finish and neatly wrote the correct answers in my mistake notebook. Feeling the constant stare from the person beside me who hadn't walked away, I awkwardly turned to meet his gaze. The principal wants me to help Jane with her homework. Her dad came to school to discuss it. I turned him down. I said I was already tutoring someone and didn't have time. I paused, tightening my grip on my pen. The principal said it would just be a few problems. I didn't want to make it awkward for the teacher. Nothing else, so don't listen to what people in the grade are gossiping about. I couldn't help but suppress a smile and replied lightly. Daisy, I wanted to ask you something. He hesitated, and I tilted my head, interested in what he'd say next. When those girls asked you to deliver love letters to me, did you ever think about saying no? I scratched my head, twisting my sleeves and thinking seriously for a moment. He straightforwardly asked, when I was with Jane, did it ever bother you just a little? A sigh slipped from my throat, and I nodded honestly. A soft laugh came from beside me, as Henry tilted his head down with a slight smile while continuing to write on his paper. That's enough. Enough for what? Just as I was about to say something, Henry playfully grabbed my head, turning me back to focus on my work. Do your math. Be my little shadow, don't embarrass me now. With Henry's guidance, my math skills improved dramatically, and my scores soared. Despite still being permanently second place, my gap with Henry was getting smaller, though he kept raising the bar. Here, this is for you. Henry frowned, taking the envelope I handed him. He casually tossed it into the trash. I stood there staring at the corner sticking out, letting out a sigh. That was mine. Henry's face changed, embarrassed as he carefully retrieved it from the bin, trying to avoid the bits of food residue. He cleaned it thoroughly with some tissues. Why didn't you say anything earlier? Why are you grinning like that? He eagerly opened the letter, but looked a bit disappointed. You call this a love letter? I never said it was a love letter. But it was filled with my heartfelt thanks and everything I wanted to say to him. Trying hard to suppress a smile, he read the letter several times before pridefully tucking it into his pocket. So sentimental. Stubborn. At the end of semester exams, my math score shockingly placed me in the top 3 in the whole grade. After school, I joyfully knocked on my door holding my report card. Finally, I could enjoy a good holiday. The table was loaded with my favorite dishes, sweet and sour fish, braised ribs, and spicy stir-fried pork. My mom's phone played a familiar voice, and I rushed to grab it, dropping my bag. She gently patted my head and went to the kitchen to get some rice. "Dad, guess what score I got in math?" The screen showed my dad's face, and my eyes immediately welled up. I hadn't seen him in over a year. Suddenly, a stranger appeared beside my dad, and my lifted smile froze on my face. "Daisy, say hi to your Aunt Kate." I bit my lip but politely said hello. I barely listened to anything else after that because my dad said he was going to marry Kate. I tastelessly swallowed a few bites and came up with an excuse to retreat to my room. Lying on my bed, I tossed and turned, leaving damp marks on my pillow. The next day, at the New Year's Eve party, I had no energy to enjoy the program. Everyone around was so happy, but their laughter felt distant. I was like the only black and white figure in a vibrant scene. I forced smiles as I said goodbye, exchanging New Year wishes with classmates. Slowly, I walked toward the school gate. I'd never felt my backpack so heavy before, it almost suffocated me. Suddenly, someone grabbed the strap of my backpack, lifting most of the weight away. I stopped, surprised to see Henry's eyes filled with concern. He smiled softly, "Happy New Year. Don't force yourself. If you don't feel like smiling, then don't." My nose stung with emotion. Today, everyone assumed I was happy. Only he saw through my facade. We sat together on the steps of the locked-up snack shop. He brushed the snow off my head. My parents divorced when I was a junior. They pretended everything was fine so I wouldn't be affected before my college entrance exams. But I wasn't stupid. I heard them arguing every night, crying quietly under my covers. They eventually split. My mom moved us to a city with better education resources because of work. I haven't seen my dad in a long time. He once said if I topped the class again, he'd come to visit. Thinking back on it, maybe it was just something he said without much thought. Now he's going to marry Kate and soon they'll start a new family, which means we'll probably drift apart. Henry reached out to wipe the tears from my face. I sniffled, realizing that at some point tears had been streaming down my face. "Henry, I'm really jealous of you. You're so amazing, great at studying, handsome, and you have such a happy family. Sometimes I really hate you for always being better than me. It kept me from getting first place." I pouted sulkily, and Henry chuckled at my childish rant. "Daisy, you know, you're 100 times more amazing than you think." I froze, a bit stunned, but Henry continued on his own. "The first time I saw you was when you just transferred here. You were giving a speech on the flag-raising platform. You had your hair in a neat ponytail, and you radiated confidence, more dazzling than the blazing sun that day. That day, I thought how awesome it would be to be friends with someone like you. To be honest, before you transferred, I never really felt any sort of threat because I was so far ahead of the second place. But when you took that spot and our score gap started to close, I realized I wouldn't keep my place forever if I didn't keep up. Whenever you were worried about our score difference, I was watching you too. Do you know how happy I was when you challenged me to a bet? It gave me a chance to get closer to you." I didn't know what to say for a moment, so I joked, plotted and planned. He smirked, it was a long-term strategy. I watched the snowflakes fill the sky, the street lamps casting our shadows long. "Henry, what's the point of studying?" I asked. He was silent for a while, then looked at the snowy New Year's scene, to have more choices, to see broader horizons. "Daisy, I truly believe knowledge can change destinies, so don't let someone's words shake your beliefs. Live for yourself." I laughed a few silly laughs at that before he looked at me seriously. "Still aiming for first place?" I said confidently, "Of course." He chuckled, "Still betting?" "Bet. Every exam from now on, let's bet." If I beat you, you owe me a wish like last time. 3 chapters set for it, right? He smiled but didn't say anything more. The snow fell heavier as I rubbed my frozen red hands and hesitated before asking, Henry, what if I don't get into Cambridge? You did say my scores might be a bit shaky. Harvard's pretty great too. I'm not joking. For real, what if we end up in different schools? He wrapped his arm around my shoulders. No worries. All roads lead to the same place. As the time for our college entrance exams drew nearer, the atmosphere in the classroom grew more tense and stifling. The most beautiful sunsets always appeared outside the classroom windows during our school days. In that cramped space, the air seemed stifling, and everyone sneaked glances outside. The homeroom teacher cleared his throat a few times, and only then did we reluctantly turn away. Put down your pens, everyone. We dumbly followed the instructions and looked at the teacher. Take a moment to enjoy the sunset. Soon, these views will be gone. An unexpected sadness hit me. I laid my head on the desk, quietly watching the brilliant sunset outside the window, colorful and beautiful. I wondered if Henry was watching it too. As I lowered my head, flipping open the political science book, I found a sentence scrawled in small characters on the first page. It must have been written by Henry the last time I lent it to him. You're almost at the light, right? Almost there. Hang in a bit longer. Another gym class came around, and suddenly I felt a bit uncomfortable in my stomach. I cursed my poor timing as soon as the bell rang and rushed back to the classroom. A group of younger students passed by, their glances carrying a hint of teasing. I sped up, catching a glimpse of myself in the staircase mirror. Sure enough, there was a bloodstain on the back of my pants. Someone tugged at my sleeve, and when I turned, I found Jane holding me back. She looked like she wanted to say something but hesitated. Assuming she wanted to pick on me, I sighed, ready to brush her off. But to my surprise, she slipped something into my hand. I opened my palm, a pack of sanitary pads rested there quietly. I happen to have some. Use this. She let go of my sleeve awkwardly, dusting her hands off disdainfully. The dean's stern voice came from behind. What are you muttering about on the stairs? Get back to studying. Jane turned on her heel and ran. But teacher, she was the one talking to me first. It has nothing to do with me. With a helpless smile, I clutched the pads and hurried to the restroom, feeling strangely warm inside. For the first time since transferring to the second school, I came in first place on the mock exam. The golden list had Daisy printed at the very top. Whoa, did she finally overtake Henry? My God, she really beat Henry in the exam. I bet Henry let her win. There's been this rumor about them dating, right? I think Henry's letting Daisy win on purpose. Just then, a classmate muttered this and turned, coming face to face with Henry, who had his hands in his pockets. Startled, the classmate laughed awkwardly. Henry, I'm right, aren't I? Henry gave a cold laugh, pushing him aside to stand next to me. She was the only one who solved the last question. I couldn't figure it out. Don't dismiss all her hard work with a few casual words. I stared at the results list in disbelief, still feeling like it was unreal, but my lips curled up in satisfaction. All those nights staying up, all those tears, the moments of frustration when I couldn't find the answers, all of them had finally paid off. Henry grinned stupidly, watching my smile. He nudged my arm. I owe you a wish for losing the bet. What's it going to be? I played coy, gesturing for him to keep quiet with a finger to my lips. Hang on. I want to win a few more times and save for something big. He raised an eyebrow. You sure? This might be a once-in-a-lifetime offer. I won't go easy on you next time. Ha. Just wait and see. In all future exams, it's always a back and forth between Henry and me for first and second place. Rumors that we're dating have spread throughout the whole school. Every time we go to the office, there's always a teacher with a knowing smile, subtly asking about us. But I know we're still missing a formal commitment, and now isn't the right time. During the prep rally, Henry and I, as class representatives, led the students in a pledge. Under the fluttering flag, we raised our right hands. Today I am proud of Second High, tomorrow Second High will be proud of me. We will ride the waves and make it to the top. Amid the passionate vows, we shared a smile. When I got my acceptance letter from Cambridge University, my mom was so excited she cried. She treated the offer like a treasure, checking it over and over and sharing pictures in the family group chat. Compared to her, I was much calmer. I nudged Henry to send over a photo of his offer too. "Hey, you've got one too, just with a different name," he teased, but still sent over the picture of his Cambridge University offer. I smiled contentedly and set up a meeting at the small square the next day. "I'm right outside your building now." I paused, quickly threw on some clothes, and dashed downstairs. The moment I saw Henry, I couldn't help but laugh. He looked so serious, standing there so formally. It was funny. I'd never seen him so nervous and fidgety. The blush at the tips of his ears and his trembling fingers overlapped with the confident, proud teenager I remembered, turning into the name Henry that always moves me. Seeing his stammering, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Henry, do you remember when I said I was saving up wishes for a big one?" His bright eyes caught mine, and I took a deep breath. "My wish is to be your girlfriend." He chuckled and hugged me tightly, his scent like fresh soap. I suddenly felt like teasing him and mumbled against his chest. "Weren't you the one who set rules about not dating me? Should we just drop it?" He let out a soft laugh above my head. "Fool, that was my wish. As it turns out, when you kiss, noses really do touch." Epilogue. On our 7th-year anniversary, Henry mysteriously insisted on taking me somewhere. Sensing something, I posted about it online, and everyone thought Henry was going to propose. Someone even suggested I practice covering my mouth and crying. This morning, I stood rehearsing in front of the mirror, but was too awkward to even fake tears. It's tricky because I rarely cry, and I didn't want to disappoint Henry if I stayed too calm when he got down on one knee. Regardless, dressing up nicely would be a safe bet. Henry was already waiting downstairs. Nervously, I hooked my arm around his and gave him a once-over. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. On the road, I watched the scenery outside the car window and occasionally snuck a glance at Henry driving. When I recognized the familiar route, I was momentarily puzzled. Weren't we heading towards Second High School? Taking me on a trip down memory lane? Henry just smiled, parking the car. "Get out, Your Highness." Feeling a bit let down, although it wasn't what I expected, it was nice to visit my old high school again. I wondered how the teachers were doing. We easily got in after telling the guard we were alumni. It was break time, and the exercise music filled the air. Watching the energetic students, I joined in a bit, feeling envious and nostalgic. Henry pointed towards a leader on the podium. "The first time I saw you, you were standing right there." I gazed at the youthful figure, chuckling. "Is that when you got bad thoughts?" "Yeah, didn't expect you'd fall for it so easily and run off." I turned and playfully knocked him on the head, and he pretended to be hurt, accusing me of domestic violence. The office teachers were thrilled to see us, grinning from ear to ear and showing off to new teachers. These two are my star students, back to see me. I remember when they were both fighting to ask about math problems, they said, reminiscing fondly. I too couldn't help smiling, remembering the silly bickering with Henry back then. The head of the department still had the same serious look, but the white hair told stories of time passing. "You two used to sneak around while you were students, didn't you?" The whole office had bets on whether you two were together. I was taken aback, but Henry discreetly squeezed my hand and whispered. Maybe I was just too obvious. Passing by the senior class, we overheard the teacher inside lecturing. "Some of you are getting too close, you're almost adults, so you know what I mean. Early dating is fine, but unless you can both get into Cambridge like Henry and Daisy, forget about it." It was hard to tell if we were being used as a positive or negative example, but we quickly moved away from the class. Walking through the hallways, I excitedly pointed at the photos on the wall to Henry. "Look, it's us." On the wall honoring outstanding alumni, Henry's and my photos were right next to each other, labeled with our scores and school names. Henry grinned. "To stand beside Miss Daisy is my honor." "You bet." On the drive back, I realized Henry had taken me to all the places where we shared important memories. The street where we had our first date, the lake where we took our first picture, the cinema entrance where he had to coax me for half an hour after upsetting me. I had this feeling something big was about to happen. I made my way to the little convenience store at the corner on that snowy night. When he dropped to one knee, I was totally stunned. None of the rehearsals mattered anymore. It felt like fireworks exploded in my head, and I watched in a daze as he carefully slid a ring onto my finger. I only realized how much of a mess I was when he gently wiped away my tears. All those worries before seemed pointless, and I could hardly believe the sobbing, stammering person saying I do was actually me. As Henry wrapped his arm around me and we started heading back, I finally came to my senses and asked him, sniffing. "Was I crying really ugly just now?" "Pretty ugly, yeah." Seeing my face fall even more, Henry quickly whisked me into the car, saying, "You've got the ring now, no take-backs on marrying me."